Bear My Curse, Chapter 4, Part 2. Inside of his mental space, Indigo was thrown into the cold side of his mind, where everything was near freezing. Landing on his hands and knees, he gulped down the knot in his throat as he panted. Nightmare! Nightmare! He stood up, looking around.
Indigo.
He perked up as his name was called in a hushed whisper. He knew that voice. Mom? He turned around as the whisper came again, seeing what appeared to be a mirror, but was really just a window, and on the other side was something that horrified him. It was his brother, strapped to a chair and bound with magic-concealing braces. All around him were ponies that looked like they'd crawled out of their own graves. They all lumbered towards him, their jaws hanging or limply snapping shut. Indigo placed his hands on the mirror before bashing at the glass, trying to break it, but each crack he made was fixed in a single instance. He could do nothing as he watched his brother get torn to shreds by teeth and hooves. Hearing moaning from another mirror beside him, a light came on, showing his mother getting brutally molested and raped by other dragons. They were all laughing hysterically, genuinely and morbidly enjoying their time toying with her. It was enough to boil his blood and tense his nerves. Looking behind him as another light came on, he found one more mirror, which had his father walking away with King Sombra, abandoning him and his family to die as he lived on as Sombra's personal dragon. The morphed Drake grit his teeth as he watched all three of these play again and again, tears leaking from his eyes as he faced one final mirror. One that was meant for his own nightmare. All that stared back was himself, now made a monster from Nightmare Moon's transformation. He turned away, not being able to bear looking at himself any longer. But the reflection did not copy his movements. Instead, it continued to stare at him before punching its way through the glass and pulling him through. Nightmare Moon flipped and glided along the bridge as Sombra continued to blast at her and the Drake on her back. Landing far from Sombra, she dug her tendrils into the crystal, and she wrapped them around Sombra's hooves before a single one went around his chest, pulling him to the bridge's floor violently and cracking a tooth when his face collided with it. Lunging at him as he recuperated, she sent him upwards with a vertical hook, watching him fly before reeling back her claws and sending both fists forward at once. With the force of the punches hitting Sombra square in the chest, Nightmare Moon's extra power buff on Indigo's changed body rammed the king straight through the castle, throwing him all the way across the Crystal Empire. She watched him go, then seized the moment. Taking the Drake off of her back, she plucked the heart from his claws, jumping off the bridge and sailing towards the base of the castle. Kicking up some of the ground as well as a ton of dust, Nightmare Moon stepped out of the small crater that she had made and rushed towards the bottom of the castle. Dropping the small dragon, she held the crystal heart over its pedestal, letting it float from her hands. She watched it as it glowed a bright aura, then sent a small pulse through the Empire. She grunted as the light irked her, but ignored it. She turned to the ponies around her. Quickly, my ponies! The crystal heart has returned to you! Use the light and love within you to ensure that King Sombra does not return with the relic! The ponies all glanced at each other before gazing at the crystal heart, gathering around it and finding happiness and peace within its magic. One by one, they all began to smile, regaining not only a layer of the crystalline coats, but all of it entirely. Nightmare Moon stepped back as the floor below her began to glow the same cyan blue as the heart, the power of the relic spreading to every inch of the kingdom. No! No! Stop! She looked back up at Sombra as he was charging straight for the heart. Stepping in front of it, she prepared to fight once again, but didn't have to as the heart released another pulse, one that was filled with love and empathy of the ponies that it protected. Nightmare let out a cry of her own, as it did more harm than good to her, frying Indigo's scales as it crystallized every creature around her, even the infant Drake behind her. She fought through the pain as she felt herself weaken, glaring ahead at Sombra as he felt the brisk power of love more than she did. His wails and cries soared as vastly as the pulse, and his body cracked, and she slowly stormed towards him. You thought that you had found an ally in darkness. Sombra looked down at her as he stood on his hind legs. His body continued to crack as he watched her approach him. This monologue, it was familiar. Do you comprehend the powers that you were gifted with? The same powers I was born into. Where do you think the shadows all go to hide from the precious light? Who do you think stands against them? That's right. These were the same words that she spoke when she had slain him over 1,000 years ago, when the Crystal Empire fell for the first time. What you possess is a mere fraction of their might. And you, Sombra, have taken more than you can handle. Impossible! I am the most powerful pony in this land! No, not you, not me, but a smaller, more honest soul. Our power never stands against unity, and today I unite the Crystal Ponies against you and take back my power. She shoved her claw into his chest, making it leak a stream of shadows that had a totality of darkness. Sombra gagged at his powers, the power that he had been draining from deities like her each and every day from the entirety of his exile was leached before his eyes, seeping back into the helmet of his equal, his rival, and his enemy. Now, I will show you why we call the dungeon's punishment room the Slaughterhouse. As a bright flash engulfed the two, she snapped at him, her teeth being the last thing that he saw before his vision went black and his body was no more. Outside of their confrontation, the power of the Crystal Heart had channeled itself back to the peak of the Crystal Castle, sending it all upwards and flaring it throughout Equestria, evaporating and destroying all of Sombra's shadows and crystals. Those that were under his control were freed, their spirits able to leave their deceased bodies and move onto the Aether. When the power had diminished, Nightmare Moon's hold onto Indigo faded, and she once again receded into his subconscious as the horrors he was dragged into spat him back into reality. He staggered back as his scales were smoking, seared by the Crystal Heart's power. With his first form reattained, he looked around, seeing smiles and cheers surrounding him, the crystal bodies of the ponies, and the real skies now vacant of the orange hue and black clouds. He knew right then and there that the entity of darkness itself, of nightmares, had pulled through for these ponies. Still though, the power, the pain, it would never sit right with him. He rubbed his claws as he felt a hoof tap onto his side. Looking down at his right, he saw a pink alicorn staring back at him, her coat and mane shining brightly with a crystal texture. You must be the new ruler of the Empire. She nodded, a smile stretching across her face.
That is correct. My name is Princess Miyamori Cadance, but, please, just call me Princess Cadance.
He tilted his head as she stepped back, composing herself before bowing.
I wanted to extend my gratitude to you, young dragon. You have saved the Crystal Empire from the hold of an ancient and evil unicorn king that has plagued this land for over 1,000 years.
The crystal ponies behind her bowed to him as well, all showing the same thanks before cheering for him, something that he wasn't accustomed to. Cadance smiled up at him as she stood by his side.
You must be very proud.
Looking around at all of them, he turned his attention down to his claws, flexing them as Nightmare Moon's voice came in a hush and weak tone.
Proud? Oh, very much so.
Nightmare Moon grinned as she snickered at her satisfied victory over Sombra.
You can watch stars burn out and civilizations rise and fall.
Indigo panted as he brushed his claws past his cheeks, closing his eyes tightly as he tensed up a couple of times, his mind no longer registering sound or presences around him. Not even the element bearers caught his eye. Right now, there was only one thing that he had on his mind. One thing that he wanted to do.
But when that vengeance finally comes around, there is not a single moment of all that time spent in exile that hadn't been worth it.
Indigo reached up to the helmet, his flesh sticking to it as he began to pull it off of him.
Hey! What do you think you are doing? We have a pact, remember?
Nightmare Moon used her remaining strength to snap the helmet back onto Indigo's head, making him stumble backwards and collapse onto his knees. Let me go! He punched the ground in front of him. It's over! Our deal was to destroy King Sombra. He's dead now. The Crystal Empire is safe! The ponies around him gave him curious and worried looks, wondering whom he was talking to, and what he meant by a deal. The leader of the elements, Twilight Sparkle, narrowed her eyes as she watched the scene.
Are you sure our deal is fulfilled, Indigo?
He lessened his glare in confusion as his eyes moved from the ground, staring straight forward in thought.
You never stopped to wonder whether or not the Crystal Heart was actually capable of destroying the darkness that invades the kingdom it protects. Did you?
He perked up at that, looking towards the Crystal Heart as he stood up. What are you talking about? He rushed over to it, brushing past Cadance and a white unicorn stallion. Gripping the heart, Indigo looked into it, seeing the events seconds prior playing out, only through the heart's vision. It didn't destroy King Sombra. It only repelled him, and from where he stood when in range, he was blasted south. No.
We still have work to do, young Drake. King Sombra is still out there.
Indigo gritted his teeth as he rested his forehead against the heart. His hopes of the end of the deal dashed, and putting him in an emotional state of disrepair once more. He thought that he was home free, to truly live a life his parents and his brother would be proud of. He wanted to be free. He wanted to live. I want this nightmare to end. I want my family back. In a fit of rage, he punched the relic, cracking it as he roared out. Nightmare Moon scoffed as he calmed himself, sighing heavily as he knew that all of this was never going to end just like that.
Reality is harsh, little fool. You will never see your parents or your brother again, but that won't mean that you can't live up to their expectations. Have faith in their morals as you have had faith in me, because if you're either dead or rebellious, you're useless to me.
He growled as he spun around, glaring at Nightmare Moon as she appeared as a head behind him, attached as a tendril. The element bearers jumped back as Cadance took a few steps away. Useless? To you? I gave you my body, you ungrateful mare! I helped you!
And I saved you, little Drake. I am your goddess.
You are nothing more than a wisp, a tiny flame created by sheer negativity that can't do a damn thing in this world without someone like me. You are not a goddess, and you are not a nightmare. All you are is a vindictive mare who wants nothing but blood to all that stands before her. She hissed in his face as she snapped her jaws at him.
How dare you! I gave you a second chance at life, and you show me disrespect?
I gave you as much of a chance as I did. We're even, Nightmare Moon. I owe you nothing. He grasped the helmet again, trying to peel it off. Now get off of me! Get out of my body! Get out of my head!
No!
It snapped back onto him again, squeezing his skull tightly as he growled at the pain.
When that lowlife of a king was draining every ounce of power from me, it was a non-stop, burning ache I could never rid myself of. No matter where my moon was, I could never escape that pain. You want to know what I want out of this partnership, Drake? I want him to feel the exact same torture. I want vengeance for an eternity of agony.
Her face contorted slightly, looking more like a demoness from Tallrascha as she hardened her wicked glare, freezing Indigo in place as her tendrils wrapped around his throat and forced him to look her in the eye.
I want the corrupted ponies like him to fear me. I want them to know that it was me that stopped them. Denying them their privilege to conquer will deliver the pain I felt when my chance was stripped from me by the false king. I chose you as my weapon, my shield, because there is no other like you to do this bidding for me.
She wrapped around him, entangling him as she began to sink into his body.
No mere pony would be able to withstand my power and retain their sanity. The last host was broken with sorrow and disrepair, and gave me life to stand in her place as she locked herself away in her heart. You have the same sadness in your heart, but still push forward. You have an indomitable will, young Drake. That is why I appeared before you with a choice to live or die.
He took in a breath as she disappeared into him, staying there for a moment before looking up, seeing the ponies in front of him. Glancing back at the ground, he sighed as he pushed himself up to his feet, rubbing his throat. So, I'm nothing but a tool to you, Figures. Any dark pony like you would only look out for yourself. Nightmare Moon's aura both writhed and saddened at his words.
Think what you will, Indigo the Dragon. It matters not what you believe me to be, or what my motives are. I am here, harboring your body now. And I am not going anywhere anytime soon.
Indigo huffed as he looked back at the heart, seeing the crack seal quickly. Sighing in relief, he turned his attention to the sky, seeing the true sunny day beaming throughout the Empire. So, what now? Nightmare hummed in his mind as she calmed herself, relaxing her aura and taking in the image of her more pleasant appearance once more.
We live, Indigo.
He looked down at the ponies before him.
Until our fated rematch with King Sombra arrives, we live.
She grinned as she purred, making his heart vibrate as she whispered into his ear.
With you, bearing my curse. And you pounding my pussy with each and every thrust of your cock.
I don't know why I love to fuck up serious shit with putting in irrelevant shit. Like this, or putting in something stupid. It's just so fun to me, man. Anyway, I'd love to give a very special thank you to my absolutely funny donators. Top donator, Dash of Evergreen, Peter Coulthard, Dospo, RuneScythe9852, CourierCruz CI, Delta Omega, Ryanny Dragonwolf, Gagi, Secret Moon, Tallrascha, The Toilet Snake, Soul Dragon, Starlight Glimmer, Squiddy Boy, David D. Sanchez, Trey, Dak Britton, Joe Piercy, Alex F., Rainbow Dash, James Dalton, and Teal K. Anderson. Thank you all very much for watching this video, and live life to the fullest.